What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
I'm excited about our opportunity to visit with a new friend from, as they say, across the pond. I'm reaching back over into the London area, a place called Bath, to visit today with Tim Silk. Tim and I are on a similar message. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to connect up with you, Tim, is that this is a guy who was trying to change lives, literally on a global basis, by working on not just the way we think, but releasing the specialness of our hearts, so that we can be used to impact the lives of others that we're blessed to come into contact with. And so, Tim, to welcome to Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with you.
Super. Well, I got to start with this because I fell in love with the name of your company. Okay, this is Acacia Days because of the meaning behind it. Why don't you share with our guests a little bit about who Acacia Days is and where you are right now in your walk?
Well, I am a great fan of wood. I love working with wood. I love everything that it represents. And one of the keywords for building houses is the acacia wood. It's been used in all over the world, in the Middle East and through the jungle areas. It's just a wood that lasts. It resists rot and insects, etc. So it's a great way. It got me thinking. A great way of building homes that last, and that, in essence, gets to the heart of what I'm trying to do, which is help leaders lead from a family, from a home that lasts, that has a future and has a hope. And there's also the other part of it is from my own Christian faith, that the acacia wood in the Old Testament of the Bible is the wood that the temple was made from. And it just struck me that actually I want to be someone who helps people to meet God in a way that is kind and loving. And so that there's those two meanings there that come from the Acacia Days.
Yeah, I love it because of the fact that you and I have similar beliefs in that each and every one of us are given this special heart. And the heart is designed, it's the center of our being, it's the center post. And it's the place that is designed to connect with others. And as leaders in today's time, and especially you and I are talking January 2025, we've turned this new page. It's a false page because there's no difference in January versus December, but we make a big deal out of it. But what it offers is the opportunity to reset and to kind of maybe do something new, different, better, or what have you. When you think of 2025, and because I think it's important for us to put context around everything we're talking about today, what do you see in the marketplace? What expectations or sort of the atmosphere that leaders are going to be navigating as we turn this new page to a new year?
Well, you can't look at today's date without using words like uncertainty, which is an interesting one because yes, there's uncertainty everywhere, but it gets, if you can only use it so long before you realize actually there's something certain about uncertainty. So then it goes full circle, and I start to think, well, maybe there are things that leaders could do. Leaders need to be those who have really got their feet on the ground. As I look out at the marketplace, I think there's financial questions being asked big time. I think there are world peace questions that are constantly in the news. And artificial intelligence you can't have a conversation today without that. And I think that the workplace, people at work are unsettled, desperately looking to make a difference, make it work, but are really seriously unsettled. And I think that moves me, and that makes me want to actually say, this is my wrestle, but it's also something that I think we can speak into. I'd say, for example, that as you look forwards, we can't help but talk about AI. But then as we look back, we'll also be saying, well, hang on, what has the last 5 years in our lives been like? We relate through screens, so we're disconnected slightly, and so when we look forward, we can't help but seeing, well, we're seeing, looking forward with eyes that have been formed by the technology, and we desperately need to reconnect with people around us.
Yeah, I love this thought that as we navigate 2025, this atmosphere of unsettlement, and because I think it's an important thing as leaders we need to grasp, because uh, the when leadership is most needed is in a time of things being unsettled or chaos. If things
Yeah.
are placid, are fluid, yeah, you do need leadership, but it's not as mandatory as when things are running counter-cyclical, or there's uncertainty, or there's questioning going on. And when you talk about, and I'm going to use the word soft skills here, and I'm doing it intentionally because I think it's the greatest misnomer that was ever labeled,
Yeah.
is the important from a leader to have soft skills, because soft skills is how we interact with others. Soft skills is the center point of the book that I wrote, Equipped to Lead the Extraordinary Power of Emotional Intelligence. Soft skills is what helps us to, as leaders, to create a place where people can navigate. You write about and talk about soft skills, about accelerating uh, character, character qualities, if you want to have a healthy business culture. What do you mean about accelerating character qualities?
Well, just to speak to the soft skills point, I think they're probably in a corporate setting, distinct from hard skills, which is telling people what to do. Soft skills, which ironically are the harder thing, to actually be emotionally intelligent, be patient, be someone who's humble, be someone who is inquisitive, who's willing to be curious and ask the questions. And that's when you start to move into character qualities, of those things. And accelerating those, I think, is the skill beneath the skill. It's the skill beneath the soft skill that underpins all our interactions, is how I look out on this conversation, or a conversation with my team or with a client. It's from what's going on within me, and that I think can be addressed and can be dialed up or dialed down in terms of character qualities. Pick the one that is in question. It might be I'm impatient, so I need to work on that. How can I what can I see is the impact and the cost of being impatient, versus what's the return on investment of actually addressing it. So if I
Yeah,
was more patient, what impact would that have, on getting other people to speak into a problem we're trying to solve, or trying to really understand what's going on behind the issue. So
yeah.
that's
So what you're talking about here is self-awareness, right? It's to go in that place of being self-aware. It's a conversation I have with a lot of leaders, and there's a lot of us that really sometimes struggle with self-awareness. We get honed on the perception we would like to have, as opposed to the perception that is reality.
yeah.
From your perspective, what stops leaders with the consulting you've done? What stops leaders from stepping into that box where self-awareness uh, becomes a tool that they can develop?
I think sometimes leaders are a victim of their own success. That they're told, as one client I work with, who I've said, you've been told for years how brilliant you are, but it's not clear to me that you know how to be brilliant. And I
Wow.
think that's the insight of, exceptional speaker, exceptional in a team, exceptional, front stage, backstage, well, and not really, there's a list of things. And I
Hmm.
think that is where the self-awareness, people just don't seem to have to slow down and ask the questions, because I think, you train for a role, you qualified in a role, you jump on the train, and 2 or 3 decades down the line, no one is actually able then to say, do you realize how you're coming across? Or do you realize how painful that was? Or do you realize that you cut off 3 people that were actually just about to tell us a really significant piece of information? Who's there when you're in your 50s and all you've got is success in your CV,
Hmm.
who's there to say, to speak in, give permission to even say, are you aware that, or
Hmm.
can you see yourself? And if no one else is speaking into your life, that you tell yourself this inner monologue, this self-talk, that actually things must be fine. I mean, look at the figures.
Right. Yeah. What you're also describing is that as leaders, we're charged with getting results. And early in our career, we can sometimes get results out of just brute force, just a
Yeah,
force of energy, make things happen, make things happen. But from a scale standpoint, that can work okay in a small environment. But if we're trying to scale and expand the capability of our team, which means sometimes we're expanding the team itself, the challenge we're running is that it's the ability to increase productivity of those people around us. And I love this example you give, is I might be brilliant in my role from a technical standpoint, but am I brilliant? Do I use my intellect to connect with others and allow people to have a voice at the table, which means that I've got to take a step back and sometimes tone down my thought process to be more present at the moment, to be curious as to what might be going on with them. Because when I go to that place of curiosity, I'm now increasing connection because I'm creating value with other people, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
I do say that a lot with people, certainly with the founder stage through the stages of company scale, that it's very difficult for people to let go or to change or realign their approach according to the stage that the organization is in, from
mhm,
driving it forward through to actually the higher up I think you go in the organization. I constantly say to people that the higher up you go, the more time you need to reflect, the slower you need to go, and actually the less you need to say initially. So
mhm.
get other people to speak, get other people, draw other people out. But that again is a self-awareness question, that unless people have the opportunity to adjust their pace, then
Mhm.
they don't get to see why that's key and actually the competitive advantage.
Yeah. And here's a message that I've been pondering over the last few weeks in preparation for some work I'm going to be doing in a couple of weeks on a strategic planning session I'm leading to create your vision for the year. And it has to do with the fact that what you're talking about, reflection and pondering, is not inactivity. Reflection and pondering is literally an action.
Yeah.
And it's a muscle that has to be developed that has to have equal weight as to calling the play and putting players on the field and moving the ball and making things happen. Uh, and so I love looking at your website. There's a couple of things I saw in there that have to do with curiosity questions. Uh, that is, you talk to your audience about what questions are you asking at the moment. And so the questions aren't about getting results. The questions are is taking a step back and asking, I wonder how this might be different if. And it's might we try a different angle on this? Even though we think that this direction is the right one to go, might we take a different angle on this? And the third one is what would happen? What would happen if we tried? Right? If I think I know the answer already, why are these three questions important for me as a leader to take a step back and ponder on?
I think that the key two things. One is it draws out your team, and secondly, um, my basic premise is I think I'm right. I just need to prove it. So um, if I know I'm right, maybe that's different. And in a military scenario under fire, you've got to make a decision. You've got to make it now, and everyone's going to agree. We're going to do it. Let's go. But that's not often the case.
Hmm.
Often we could say, do you know, we need to get this results by the end of quarter 1. And that requires us all to get around this, all to be part of this. This is what we think is the outcome we're looking for. What happens if we look at it differently? And that's where I think you draw people out, and I think it shifts the culture of an organization from just getting the right answer to get the right target, to get the right numbers, to actually redefining the whole thing, because perhaps the numbers are too small. Perhaps the numbers are wrong. Perhaps the time frame's wrong. But unless we're actually able to draw people into 40 minutes of pondering, I think we're missing something.
Yeah.
And the other factor is, again, to go on about AI, it's not going to be long before a lot of these conversations are not happening because the answers are already given. And all that's
Hmm.
going to be left is humans developing their soft skills, because
Hmm.
a lot of the answers and the scales and the when are we going to do it by when, it's all going to be fed to us. And the
Hmm.
real competitive advantage will be where the people that we work with are released to develop their character qualities and be at their best.
Yeah. And so what you're talking about here is the leader recognizes in order to get results is I have to build a culture of engagement. That
100%.
if I don't have engagement, especially as you're talking about, if you're using AI, I mean, I use it a lot now for research and for finding tactical information and ideas, but I have to then take a step back and take my intellect and my heart, take that information and figure out how do I process, what do I do with it? Leaders are going to spend more time in that space because AI is going to put more tactical data in front of them. We'll have even more information to be able to operate from, but it's still going to have the human head and human heart to be able to
Yeah.
process that. And the way we process it is we have to make sure that people are not just complying with orders, but they're committed to direction, right?
Yeah, and I think that, well, maybe another area with all that on the back of curiosity is it helps us with discernment, because
Mm,
where there's an absolute deluge of data which is only increasing, um, I mean, you see the difference between Googling something and looking it up on Perplexity, for example. Google will give you a load of possibilities that you can be curious about, and a load of sponsored links you might not want to follow. But edit that out. But the Perplexity will give you the answer. You don't need to be curious or discerning because it just told you the answer. That's
hmm.
both brilliant and awful.
It's
And
awful. I take it more to the awful stages because of the fact of um, the. I think that I did a workshop last year. We spent a lot of time talking about the difference between getting our people to do versus to think.
yeah,
I tell them to help them be better to do, but the more I tell them, the more I'm weakening their ability to think. And if I want independent, highly committed people, I need to get them to think because that's what they want. They want to think. They want to think. They want to have a voice. And what you're describing here, and I love this when I looked at your, um, that's it's Betty, my assistant, listens to this. I want to capture Tim's voice here because curiosity paints a full palette. Uh,
ah,
I fell in love with that phrase, Tim, and I'm going to quote you 4 or 5 times, and I'll take it. No, I'm just joking, but it's
you're
awesome.
welcome.
It's awesome because I love that. There's a curiosity, it literally paints with a full palette. You just think about how boring life would be if we were monochromatic, where we're dealing with black and whites. Um,
I wonder if we have been leading in monochromatically in recent years, and now is the time to be bringing the color palette back in by
mhm,
opening up the character qualities a bit more. Because what I mean by that is it has been about what do the stakeholders say, what does the board say, what are the numbers, what are the things that we're aiming for? Have you hit your targets? Well,
mhm,
that's, yeah, I understand that, but that doesn't really bring out the best in human beings, and therefore doesn't bring out the best in business.
mhm. Yeah, it's huge. And what happens is, I believe that as leaders, what we're doing is we're really competing for the hearts of our people. That's what
Yep.
we're competing for. They're going to give us their mind. They'll give us their mind, but we got to compete for their heart. And what you're describing um, is when you're working with a full palette and you're creating an atmosphere that might be interesting and engagement and making that person feel like that they have a sense of value because of you're listening to what they say. You're putting information out there and you're not coming across as a militaristic dictator, but literally uh, an engaging leader that really pulls people together. And there's something you said earlier. I want to make sure I go back and we chronicle this because it's a really important part. You talk about in military terms. There's times you don't have time to go and do a consensus and figure things out. You're calling shots that are really are heavy on the fire, that are life-saving decisions, right? The challenge that I was thinking about as you said that is that as a leader, if if my leadership style is we are constantly in a firefight, and we're constantly in a firefight, that should be a self-reflective flag that something's going on. Why am I always in a firefight? Because that's going to wear people down, right? And it's going to be in a situation where um, the, uh, the people themselves are not going to be as committed to going forward as would be. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think leadership that is fueled by cortisol and fear is is very short term. I the SAS is a brilliant series over here on this Society for Ungentlemanly Warfare, I think it was called, and Paddy someone was one of the trainers, and he got his new crew in, and they were treating him like they normally would treat military leaders, and then he absolutely told them off in language I can't repeat about you've got to ask why. You've got to ask questions because when it all goes wrong, and he described it in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to take over. You've got to own it. And I think the military examples are only in one particular firefight. Other military leaders have got soldiers to that point, and they'll get soldiers out of that point. It's only a moment. If we make that a career choice, I think we're in trouble, and
Mm-hmm.
at the we limit the effectiveness of our people and our business if we do
Yeah.
that.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.